The bank manager called the police on the black customer. Then the vault doors opened. The entire bank became quiet the second Marcus placed the black duffel bag on the marble counter. Not normal quiet. The kind of quiet where people stop pretending not to stare. The kind where conversations pause halfway through sentences and everyone suddenly becomes aware of the same person at the exact same time. Marcus noticed it immediately. 3 wealthy white customers sitting near the private banking lounge looked toward him together. A receptionist near the front desk froze slightly while typing. Even the security guard standing beside the glass entrance straightened the posture the moment Marcus walked deeper into the building. Marcus had experienced enough moments like this to recognize the pattern instantly. A black man entering an elite downtown bank alone already made some people uncomfortable. A black man carrying a heavy duffel bag into a luxury bank, that made fear spread fast. Marcus remained calm while adjusting the sleeve of his dark coat. The bank itself looked more like a 5-star hotel than a financial building. Giant crystal lights hung above polished marble floors while soft piano music played quietly from hidden speakers. Private clients drank expensive coffee inside glass offices while employees moved carefully through the building speaking in low professional voices. Everything inside screamed wealth, and somehow Marcus still looked suspicious to them. The young white teller behind the counter forced a polite smile. "How can I help you today, sir?" Marcus slid a small card across the counter calmly. "I need access to Vault C." The teller looked down at the black card, then looked up again, and instantly became nervous. Because black banking cards at institutions like this usually belonged to people with terrifying amounts of money. But Marcus's appearance confused her expectations. Black hoodie beneath expansive coat. Simple running shoes. No flashy watch. No visible security team. Nothing about him matched what her brain expected extreme wealth to look like. "Of course," she said carefully. "One moment, please." She picked up the phone beside her desk immediately. Marcus noticed a quick glance she gave another employee across the room. Subtle, but obvious. A signal. The teller lowered her voice while speaking into the phone. "Yes, he's here now." Marcus almost smiled from exhaustion, because he already knew the assumptions happening behind those nervous eyes. Fraud, stolen card, fake account, something illegal. The bank manager appeared less than a minute later. Tall white man, perfect gray suit, professional smile that looked practiced rather than genuine. "Good afternoon," he said while approaching. "I'm Daniel Whitmore, branch manager." Marcus shook his hand politely. "Marcus Reed." Daniel nodded once while carefully studying him. "How may we assist you today?" Marcus pointed calmly toward the card still sitting on the counter. "I already explained." Daniel picked up the black card slowly. The second he saw the account number, his expression shifted, only slightly, but enough. Because suddenly Marcus wasn't just a random customer anymore. This account carried serious money, very serious money. Daniel looked back up quickly. "You're requesting access to Vault C personally?" "Yeah." Daniel hesitated, not because the request was unusual, because Marcus was. And Marcus noticed immediately. "I assume there's a problem." Daniel smiled professionally again. "No problem at all, sir. We simply have procedures for high-security accounts." Marcus nodded slowly, then followed them. Daniel gestured politely toward the private office section. "If you'd come with me." As Marcus followed him across the lobby, he could feel eyes tracking him from every direction. The security guard near the entrance subtly touched the radio attached to his shoulder. One woman quietly moved her purse closer beside her chair. Marcus noticed all of it, always. Inside Daniel's office, giant windows overlooked downtown Chicago while expensive artwork covered the walls. Daniel closed the door carefully, then sat across from Marcus. "I'll need identification and secondary verification." Marcus handed over his driver's license calmly. Daniel examined it for several seconds longer than necessary. "You live on Lakeshore Drive?" Marcus nodded once. Again that tiny flicker of surprise crossed Daniel's face, because wealthy black men still confuse certain people. Daniel typed slowly into his computer while occasionally glancing up at Marcus. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, can you explain the purpose of accessing Vault C today?" Marcus stared at him quietly. "Can you explain why that matters?" Daniel smiled carefully. "Large transactions require additional oversight." Marcus leaned back slightly. "I didn't mention a transaction." Silence. Daniel adjusted his tie awkwardly. Because Marcus was right, the question itself exposed assumption. Daniel quickly recovered. "Standard procedure," Marcus almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because racism often hid behind procedure. Before Marcus could respond, a loud buzz came through Daniel's desk phone. The manager answered immediately. "Yes." His face changed slightly while listening. Then he lowered his voice. I understand. Marcus already knew. Security. Daniel hung up slowly. There seems to be concern from staff regarding the bag you brought in. Marcus looked down briefly at the black duffel bag beside his chair. Then back up. What kind of concern? Daniel hesitated. The size, weight, behavior patterns. Marcus stared at him for several seconds, then quietly asked, behavior patterns. Daniel instantly realized how bad that sounded. What I mean is, you mean a black man carrying a bag made people nervous? Silence. Heavy silence. Daniel's professional mask cracked slightly. That's not what I said. Marcus nodded slowly. No, he replied. It's what happened. Outside the office window, Marcus noticed the security guard now standing much closer nearby, watching. The manager noticed Marcus looking. Again, sir, nobody is accusing you of anything. Marcus folded his hands calmly. Not out loud. Daniel rubbed his forehead slightly now. Because the situation was slipping away from professionalism and moving toward truth. The desk phone rang again. Daniel answered immediately, frustration growing now. Yes. His face tightened. No, do not call them yet. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Call who? Daniel realized too late. Marcus heard the sentence. The manager quickly stood up. Excuse me one moment. He stepped outside the office and closed the door behind him. Marcus remained seated quietly, but through the glass walls, he could see everything. Daniel speaking urgently to security. The nervous teller whispering something. Employees staring toward the office repeatedly. Then suddenly, Marcus saw one employee quietly dialing a phone while looking directly at him. Police, of course. Marcus leaned back slowly in the chair and closed his eyes briefly. Not anger, not shock, just disappointment. Because no matter how successful he became, some people would always see danger before humanity. 10 minutes later, the office door opened again. Daniel returned looking tense. Mr. Reed. Marcus looked at him calmly. You called the police? Daniel froze. I didn't personally, but somebody did. Silence again. Daniel sat back down heavily. Given the circumstances. Marcus interrupted quietly. What circumstances exactly? Daniel couldn't answer immediately, because saying the real answer out loud would sound ugly. A black man? A bag? A wealthy bank? Fear? Marcus slowly stood up now. The movement instantly made Daniel nervous. I think this meeting is over, Marcus said calmly. Daniel raised both hands slightly. Sir, please understand this is simply precaution. Marcus stared directly at him. Precaution? Against what? Neither man spoke for several seconds. Then Marcus quietly asked the question that destroyed the entire room. If I looked like you, would police already be on the way? Daniel lowered his eyes, because deep down, he knew the answer. The office suddenly became chaotic outside. 2 police officers entered the bank quickly while customers openly stared now. Phones slowly appeared. Whispers spread instantly. Marcus looked through the glass wall toward the officers approaching, then quietly laughed once. Not happy laughter, tired laughter. Daniel looked embarrassed now. I'm sorry it escalated. Marcus picked up the black duffel bag slowly. It escalated the second people saw me as a threat before a customer. The officers entered the office moments later. 1 white officer, 1 Latino officer. Both immediately looked toward the duffel bag. Sir, the white officer began carefully. We received reports of suspicious activity. Marcus nodded slowly. Of course you did. The officer looked confused by the calm response. We just need to verify what's inside the bag. Marcus looked toward Daniel, then toward the officers, then slowly unzipped the bag. The entire office tensed. The white officer subtly placed one hand near his belt. Marcus noticed. Always. Then he reached inside calmly and pulled out stacks of old paper files. Nothing dangerous, just documents. The officers looked confused immediately. Marcus removed another folder, then another. Property records, investment papers, banking audits. Daniel frowned slightly. What exactly is this? Marcus slowly reached into the side pocket of the bag and removed a small, silver key, vault key. Everything changed instantly. Daniel's face lost color, because suddenly he understood something terrifying. Marcus wasn't there to rob the bank. He was there because he already owned part of it. Marcus placed the key on the desk carefully, then looked directly at Daniel. You know what Vault C contains? Nobody answered. Marcus smiled sadly. Enough shares to replace half this branch's executive board. Silence crushed the room. The white officer blinked. Wait, what? Marcus calmly pulled out one final document and handed it across the desk. Daniel grabbed it quickly, then froze completely after reading the name at the top. Board Oversight Authorization. Marcus Reed, Senior Majority Investor. Daniel looked physically sick now. Marcus spoke softly. I came today because Corporate received multiple complaints about racial profiling inside this branch. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed properly. Marcus continued calmly. So I decided to inspect it personally. The truth landed like an explosion. The teller outside looked horrified after overhearing. The security guard stepped backward slightly. And Daniel finally realized the worst part of all. They failed the test almost immediately. Marcus slowly zipped the duffel bag closed again, then looked around the office one final time. The vault wasn't the real reason I came, he said quietly. The room stayed silent. Marcus looked directly at Daniel. You were. Daniel sat completely frozen in his chair, while the weight of Marcus's words settled over the office like concrete. Outside the glass walls, employees had stopped pretending to work. Everyone was watching now, but the energy had changed completely. Earlier they watched Marcus with suspicion. Now they watched him with fear. The white officers slowly stepped back from the desk, visibly uncomfortable. Sir, we didn't know. Marcus looked at him calmly. That keeps becoming the excuse. Nobody argued with that. Because every person in the room understood something painful at the same time. Marcus looked dangerous right up until the moment they discovered he had power. And that realization exposed everything. Daniel rubbed his forehead slowly, embarrassment written all over his face. I want to apologize personally, he said quietly. Marcus nodded once. I believe you mean it. Daniel looked relieved for half a second. Then Marcus continued. But apologies after status verification aren't the same as basic respect. Silence again. The Latino officer lowered his eyes slightly after hearing that. Marcus picked up the silver vault key from the desk and turned it slowly between his fingers. You know what's interesting? He asked quietly. Nobody asked what was inside the bag until after Fira already entered the room. Daniel swallowed hard. Marcus looked through the glass walls toward the wealthy customer still staring outside the office. One person saw a black man with a bag. He continued. And suddenly everyone's imagination turned criminal. The teller near the counter looked ashamed now. Marcus noticed her immediately, then softened his tone slightly. This isn't just about one person, he said. It's about conditioning. The room listened carefully. People are taught to associate blackness with danger before evidence ever appears. The words hit hard because nobody there could deny what just happened. Marcus slowly placed the vault key back into his pocket. When I walked through those doors, he continued quietly, I was already guilty in your minds before I even spoke. Daniel finally stood up slowly from his chair. What happens now? Marcus looked directly at him. Now, he repeated softly, then glanced around the office one last time. Now you decide whether this branch changes, or whether today becomes another meeting everybody forgets by next week. Nobody moved, because deep down, they all knew he was right. Marcus picked up the duffel bag and walked calmly toward the office door. The officers immediately stepped aside without saying a word. The same path that felt hostile earlier now felt painfully respectful. Employees lowered their eyes as Marcus walked through the lobby. Nobody whispered anymore. Nobody stared suspiciously, but Marcus already understood the sad truth behind that change. Respect arrived too late. Right before reaching the exit doors, Marcus stopped briefly beside the nervous young teller who first called the manager. She looked close to tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. Marcus looked at her for a moment, then answered gently. Next time, see the person before the fear. She nodded quietly. Marcus pushed open the giant glass doors and stepped back out into downtown Chicago while evening sunlight reflected across the buildings around him. Behind him, the luxury bank remained silent, not because of the money, not because of the vault, because everyone inside had just been forced to confront something much more uncomfortable than financial loss. The fact that racism often reveals itself fastest in moments where people think they're simply being careful